Hey guys, welcome back. In the last demo, I showed how to create a welcome panel in a new scene. And how to change its color attributes and how to adjust its alpha. In this video, I am going to talk about how you're going to create a basic button and how to import an image or a graphic, and how to add text. We'll go over more details of how to add fonts, etc. in another tutorial, but for now let's just create those three elements for our UI. So we already have our canvas selected. One thing that I forgot to cover in the last demo is that if you want to turn a certain element on and off, what you can do is you can click on this checker box and it turns on and off. So it just makes it easy for whenever you're working. So this basically is a bool, which is true or false. Right now it's true, this is set to false, and that becomes more important whenever you're coding. So we have our welcome panel. Say I want to change the color a little. I can change the color a little. I can close that. And now if I want to add a button to my UI, what I can do is I want to make sure that I have either my canvas selected or my welcome panel. Whatever I have selected makes a difference, and I will show you how. So if I create a UI button now, you'll see how that got added within my panel. Now if I hadn't done that, Command Z is for undo. If I hadn't done that, if I had my canvas selected and I right clicked and created a button here, it'll just put it within my canvas and not my welcome panel. Again, these arrows indicate what's a group and what's not. So if I've created my button and I want it to be within my panel, and that again becomes important whenever you're working with projects where there's like a lot of panels that you're working with. That's important because if you want to turn off a certain panel, the button is still going to stay there. So if I want the button to go away as well as my panel, like you see how that button goes away too. So that's how that gets affected. And whatever I have unchecked here, you'll see in the hierarchy, it sort of becomes grayed out. So I can go back here and check it and it'll come back in here. So whenever you create a button, it already has a script attached to it, which is called a button script. You know, the image script is always there too. So we'll go over these in this demo briefly. The next thing that you want to notice here, if you hit play, which is whenever you're testing out your game, you go here and you click on button, it already has something going on here. So if I click on it, it seems like a button, like it's supposed to work like a button, but it's not doing anything. And that's because we haven't attached anything to it. Now, if we want to move this around on our canvas, there's several things that we can do. We have our, we can pan around like this. We have our move button, we have our rotate, and we have our scale. The hotkeys for these are Q for pan, W for move, E for rotate, R for scale. These are some other tools that you can use as well, and as you go forward on your keyboard, that's basically what it is. You can but we're not going to worry about these tools just yet. We're just going to be using these mainly. So now, like I said, if you want to move around on your canvas, you want to move a certain element around, you can select that in your hierarchy and move it, and you'll notice that the transform values here are changing. So those are something that you need to keep in mind. If it's like way off, you can always click on reset and it'll go in there, but it also changed its width and height. So if you want it to be centered out, you can hit 0. Oops, not the, this is the position. Nope, sorry. I think this is the position. Position. What is getting edited here? Yeah, that's what it is. It's basically that. And we kind of want this to be, all of this to be 0, I believe. Yeah, 0, 0, 0, 0. There. So that's like right in the middle now. Now, the reason it got reset to that size is because it resets the width and the height also. So we don't want that. We can always, like, you know, we'll go over that in another demo also. But for now, we're just going to do this. So we have our button here. Now, if I want to move my button similarly, I will select that and move it around. I can also go in here, click on the element that I want to tweak. If I zoom in and move that around, you can see I can move it around. If I want to place this at the top somewhere or at the bottom, right here, I can do that. But this is going to have a problem whenever the screen size changes. As you notice that my panel is changing with the screen, but my button doesn't move along with it, even though it's within this group. So the reason that's happening is we have set the scale of our screen, our panel, to this. This is the 0.75 of our screen. Now for our button, we actually want this to be 1, 1. That changed because we changed our screen size, but we want that to stay at its default. But the thing that you want to tweak is, and if you want it to stay in that spot, is this becomes super important to transform. If we want it to stick to this bottom corner, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, and it gives us several options here, and we want it to stick to our bottom right. So what we're going to choose is this, and immediately you'll notice how this changes. If I were to click and drag and change these positions, you can see how that works, but that's basically how it's going to stick in that corner. As you can see, now it sticks to that corner. So that's how it becomes a little more responsive based on like the various screens that you may be designing your UI for. The next thing that I want to talk about is, let's say this is our OK button. It updates here, but our text doesn't change here. I can zoom into my game view. It's going to look pixelated. You always want to keep this down to this. So I'm going to double click here, and I can see that my button doesn't say OK button. If I click on this arrow, it opens up whatever is within that. So I click on text. Now this is where I want to make the changes. So I'm going to adjust this and click OK, and now you see that it says OK. Now this is very small for us to see. So if you want to change the size, what you can do is change the width, the height, and then based on what your button is like, you can change the position, and then go to text here and change the font size. If you do not see this, these may be, you may have to open these up by clicking on the arrows again. So you can see that now that changed. You can choose whatever size works best for you. Now the next thing that you want to do is you have some of these options that you can choose from. You have fonts. Some fonts are within your project by default, and that's the Arial font. You can import fonts the same way that you import sprites. And I covered that in one of the previous videos. So going back to my button here and in the inspector, I can change a few things. Now if I click on play to test out what's happening, you'll see still nothing happens. We have a couple of options over here. One is a highlighted color, one is a pressed color, one is a selected color. So if I want a highlighted color, say I'm gonna choose some funky colors so it's easy for you guys to see. This is gonna be darker. So now if I click play, you're gonna see if I hover over this, it turns to the color that I had selected, and then so on and so forth. Depends on the state of your buttons. Now there's a couple of things. These are called transitions. Like you're transitioning from one state to another. You can have a sprite swap. You can have an animation attached to it. If you want to have a sprite swap, that's useful, and I will cover that in another demo, in one of the future demos here, but for now, we're just going to do the color tint. And we're going to see if we can use a source image here. So this is the basic attributes of a button. And if I want to add, say, a title over here, I'm going to cover more details about this in the next video. But to add text here, I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Again, you're going to select wherever you want your text to be. In this case, I want it to be on my welcome panel, and I want it to say welcome to the game. So I'm going to go to UI and say text. It's in the middle here. This is fine because this is basically the origin, which is 0, 0 of this thing, and it's 0, 0. And the origin is in the middle of our screen. So I'm going to change this to welcome to the demo. And just like we did for the button, I'm going to change this. And it's disappeared because my bounding box is too small for my text. So I'm going to increase my bounding box, increase the width and the height. Now this is off center. If I want this to be in the middle, I'm simply going to scroll down here and look at this option in the paragraph alignment, click on this and this. It centers out my text. I can move this up if I want to, or I can keep it in the middle. If I want this to always be docked at the top here, however, I will click on this rect transform, like the placement of it, and I will click on this option. This way, if my screen is changing in size, it's always going to stay at the top. All right, so that's how you add that. And if you want to, again, change the color of your text, you can do that by clicking on the color option. Okay, so that's how you add these basic elements into your hierarchy. And you always want to name everything properly so that it's not confusing. So that's how you add these elements to your game. And the reason I'm saying this is, say you have the reason it's all in one panel is, say you want to deactivate this entire panel through your script. Then once you click OK, it's going to turn everything off and within this panel, and you can have direct access to your game. So oh, and I also wanted to show how to import an image. So just like we did before in our panel, right click and go to UI, and we're going to import an image. And this is our basic image. To change its sprite, we can choose whatever sprites we have in our assets. Right now we have none. I may choose something from some of my some of my, perhaps this. Say I have this image. Oh, I didn't want to open it. My bad. I'm just gonna bring it in my sprites folder here. It's probably a very large image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this and click on the source image in my inspector. Click on this round button here again, select the owl, and just close this, and you'll see that that's like really stretched. So for it to be not stretched, I'm going to click on preserve aspect ratio. And now what I can do is increase the width and the height, and it'll keep its original its aspect ratio. It'll maintain that. So now if we were like, hey, welcome to the game, and then you click OK, and then that has to go away and something else pops up, it'll be just one panel that we're turning on versus turning off a bunch of different game objects that we have. Alright, so in the next video I will go over more details about how to use sprite sheets, how to slice them and use them for your buttons, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Oops. No. What's happening? Cancel and